Hi everyone, it is January the 9th, 2025. I'm here with my trusty fiance, the one and only Desiree.
It's me.
Look at that ring on her finger. One thing we wanted to talk about, which I wanted to make a very specific video for, I even took notes. We're going to keep on track on this video and try not to make it too long, but we wanted to talk about a year in Portugal. We landed on the 8th of 2024 and we went to the beach basically right away. We landed in Faro International Airport in the Algarve, and so now that we have a year behind us, we wanted to chat about basically our opinion and a list of things that we have learned and that maybe nobody else will tell you. So stick around. I hope you watch the video, like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and we can get right into it, okay? Off the top, weather. What have we noticed about the weather?
Well, there's no snow. There's no ice. There's no minus temperatures. So all the things we were used to, and basically our garden being covered in a couple of feet of snow every winter.
And we had like 6 months of winter or cold in Niagara, Canada.
You just don't have that here because it's obviously a Mediterranean climate. So, something that we had looked forward to. But it's proven to be even more fun and beautiful than we thought, just because, like, we literally have eggplant growing right now.
Yeah.
And the plant has produced 3 rounds of eggplant.
And we have green pepper growing right now.
Yeah.
Various berries and things.
So just stuff that I'm not used to, where everything is lush and green right now. And it's actually almost easier to grow things right now than in the heat of summer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a big learning curve for gardening.
Yeah.
And just enjoyable, like we're not super pale. We are outside a lot more, moving around just naturally.
We're in what they call a microclimate because it's not the same everywhere in Portugal. There are colder regions in the north and very windy regions on the west coast, which makes sense.
Yeah, everyone goes to surf there.
Yeah, like around Sagres area. Another thing that we should talk about on the point of the weather is, like, my official opinion is that from Canada, my Canadian opinion on this whole weather situation here is they have spring, they have summer, and they have a splash of autumn or fall, and that's it. They have 3 seasons, and they go back and forth between them. So coming from Canada, we're used to every conceivable season, and here...
And a very stark change in seasons, like very noticeable.
Oh, yeah.
Change in seasons in Canada as well. Here it's more gradual, and they say, oh, it's the rainy season now, but then it rains like once a week.
Right. This is another thing. I've talked about this in my live streams and on X, that, like, if somebody tells you it's the rainy season, you might get the impression that it's going to rain during the rainy season, but it doesn't constantly rain nonstop through the rainy season. There are days and weeks where it doesn't rain. And on the point of drought, we should just say it right off the top that we're not sure what the locals consider drought. Since we've came here, I think Lisbon has flooded twice. It's under a flood warning now. Albufeira has flooded. It has rained more times than I can count in the last year here. So
and we don't have any water on the land. We don't have a borehole or well or anything like that, and we've never run out of water on the land,
which was a huge concern for a lot of people. Oh, you're moving to a Mediterranean climate, you should prioritize water. And I think I went overboard. We have, like, right as we're sitting here, I have like something like 4,000 liters of water on the property. And so no, I'm saying actual, not empty jugs, but actual water. There's like 1,000 right behind the camera. There's 1,000 right there. There's 1,000 up there. And then there's like partial tanks. But so
a lot of water.
A lot of water. And not only that, but if you just have a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of street smarts, you can find a lot of water around here. There's rivers, man-made and otherwise. As I've demonstrated on my YouTube channel, I can distill the ocean and get a byproduct that you can actually use and sell, which is called salt. That brings us to food. Yeah.
Good segue.
Good segue. So we've learned, we're vegan, so the first thing we look for are vegan restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we found
And
some.
options.
We found Veganelli. We found Veggie Mommy.
Mm-hmm.
We found in Portimao the vegan restaurant that might cater our wedding.
Yes, Susie's Indian food.
So we're kind of partial to vegan restaurants, and we have found quite a lot.
And there's an Indian restaurant near us that has a really good vegan selection.
How would you define the local cuisine?
Well, I like that they use whole foods and whole ingredients, and the food here is naturally organic and higher quality. So all the gut health issues that I had forever in Canada, that I would I would actively work on my gut health, and I did for many years, and a lot of it just resolved itself by eating the food here. I mean,
Desiree is sitting on a video where she's gonna compare the price of orange juice in Canada while walking up the road and juicing an orange off a tree.
Mm-hmm.
She's sitting on that video. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. Bacalao is a thing here. If you don't know what bacalao is, it's salted codfish.
So we're not into the traditional meals
We're
here
not
because
into the
they're all
traditional.
centered around fresh fish, which makes sense.
Sardines,
we're right by the
fish,
ocean. And then a lot of very young meat. So they just things that we're not gonna eat. But even so, like everyone grows vegetables around here. Like every neighbor we have, they
Every
have
single
fruit
neighbor,
trees. And they have their potatoes growing, and you can see zucchini and eggplant, and just a little bit of everything. One of our neighbors grows tomatoes very actively. We always drive by and see her picking them, and a lot of people have really cool, strange fruit vines and trees here as well, which is super fun. And then there's grapes and oranges just growing wild, and
pomegranate wild, Nespera. We've learned a lot about just wild fruits. We never thought we would plant papaya, for example, but here we are.
Yeah.
In a papaya circle, basically, with some bananas. I learned about pineapple guava, which we have over there, a pineapple guava circle.
I'm really excited about the pineapple
I learned
guava.
about the strawberry tree, which I would...
and this all comes back to the climate. A lot of these things just naturally grow here, so now it's just up to us to find them or cultivate them.
Right. I mean, I guess what we're saying is, as vegans, we have our own way of looking at diet. We cook a lot of our own meals, but I don't want you guys to get the impression that Portugal is a turnoff for vegans, because there are vegan options, and everyone has this fresh local produce, which if you're a vegan and you have some, wisdom, then you can figure it out. There's lots of options for vegans here.
Yeah, and the vegan restaurants we've been to have all had really great options, and a gluten-free option for me too, because I am still mostly gluten-free, although I have eaten the gluten here a couple times and did not die like I almost would in Canada. So yeah, just in general, the food quality is much higher, and as vegans, there's nothing that we're missing. Like all the grocery stores have tons of options. Part of that is because Germany is really big on vegan options, and you've got a couple of
Aldi,
large German stores here, Aldi and Lidl, who import all of these options. So, right now, because it's January, Lidl and Aldi have a vegan special like every week, basically.
Even if they didn't, though, like so many things are
every
labeled.
Day, and daily they just have great staples, and it's delicious too. It's not just that they have it, it's also really yummy. And then if you want to go above and beyond a little bit, you go to the health food store, or there's a big store here called Continent, and they sell Violife cheeses and Alpro yogurts and like bigger brands like that.
Right.
So yeah, we're not missing anything really.
No.
I think the only thing we miss is Dea. The brand Dea hasn't really made it here to Portugal.
Yeah.
There was someone selling it a couple times over, but the supplier stopped supplying it. So I think it's the only thing we really miss. And honestly, like, it's mac and cheese and pizza, which
I've been meaning to make mac and cheese.
You have actually. We should get everything for that.
That leads us to demographics, which is kind of a touchy subject, but I felt like we should talk about it. Just if you're watching this video and you're thinking, I want to go to Portugal, I wonder what Adam and Desiree think about the demographics there. We just figured we should include a little bit about it. I would say mostly you see Portuguese people here, right?
Yeah.
So
and mostly elderly Portuguese people.
The first impressions I think would be the first impressions you see are a lot of guys wearing hats like this with beards, a little bit darker skin than mine, but they're tanned, and they're all 90% of them are a little bit shorter than me and skinnier than me,
and they're all super kind. Like,
most people are very kind
to
here.
us, at least. We've experienced so much like welcoming energy, and they're really nice. They're really curious about us. Like, all the neighbors go hiking.
Yep.
And they stop by regularly to have a little chat and check in on us, and like just have a little exchange. And it's really wonderful. There's definitely, the Portuguese are really wonderful people. And then as for like the younger demographic, like we've seen that at the school, obviously. We were able to enroll our children in a public school here, which was kind of crazy. We'll talk about that in the What People Don't Tell You.
We have, the last thing we're going to talk about at the end of the video is things nobody tells you.
So, but yeah, so there we've met some younger people in the community, and with children as well. And there we've met a lot of immigrants. So I feel like Portugal is very open to immigration, and there are a lot of people coming in. And the school is actually set up really well for that. They have a special program for children that don't speak Portuguese to educate them specifically in the Portuguese language.
They're very welcoming in that regard.
Yeah. And it's a great resource.
Yeah, as far as immigrants go here, it's not going to surprise you that there's a lot of people that come here from Spain, a lot of people that come here from India, a lot of people here, not so much from China. You can look up demographics online, but there are people that come here for vacation from Britain, from France.
There's a lot of Brazilians.
A lot of Brazilians.
Venezuelans lately.
Lately, yeah. And so people come here. It's a very common thing that we hear because people come here from, where's the Dutch people from? From
Holland.
Holland.
Or the Netherlands.
There you go. People come here from Holland and the Netherlands, and they fall in love with the place, the same as we did, and they stay. We have people and friends and neighbors of ours who are from Switzerland who came here and fell in love with it and stay.
Yeah, the Brits do that a lot too. They come for a vacation, and like every Brit we've met that lives here, they're like, yeah, I just came here and then I didn't want to leave. And you're like, I totally get it.
This is the Algarve, so it's a very popular tourist destination for British, people from the UK, people from Europe who want to go somewhere with a Mediterranean climate and beach or surfing. Mm-hmm. It's affordable. With Ryanair flights, you can get here from almost anywhere in Europe for like 30 euros. It's really crazy.
And I think that visiting is affordable too. Just like the rent prices, but then also food prices when you go to a restaurant, especially like we went inland, when we went eating in like the little local towns inland, just east of Lisbon, for example. We got like a huge meal with salads, fries, fresh veggie juice, soup, fresh juice, coffee.
The four of us was like 10 euros or something
It was 30, less than 30 euros for 4 people, which, I think it was like 26 euros.
Right.
And it was a lot of food. Like, we almost couldn't finish it all.
I think to end on the point of demographics, we're from Canada, so Desiree and I grew up in Niagara with basically every background from every corner of the earth. We're used to multicultural societies. Some people in the world are not used to that, but we are. So here,
for us, that's normal.
For us, it's normal. So I think what we've observed through our travels is basically the same type of immigration policies that, tax-paying boots on the ground people don't really have much of a say in. Like, we don't know who controls immigration in Canada or in America, but like, it's the same people moving everywhere.
Looking for a
better opportunity,
right?
Is one way to put it. So I think you'll run into people who are old school who say like the Portugal should be for Portuguese people, but in Canada you'll run into some old school people who are like, Canada should be for the Canadians. Like, none of it even makes sense to us, because I'm telling you, we grew up with a multicultural background. We had friends of all different nationalities and skin colors. So both Desiree and I share this similar childhood experience of, like, we don't really understand what people are talking about when they go on these racist rants. But just letting you know that there's a mix of people here. A lot of them recently are from Brazil, and a lot of Europeans and British folks, I would say. How we're adjusting is the next subject. How we're adjusting.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people ask, how are the kids doing with it, right? How are our children? And I feel like we all really enjoy the land here. We enjoy being on the land and in the garden here and planting things and kind of anticipating things growing. We all really enjoy the people that we've connected with.
Yeah.
Like, we've met some very amazing humans since we've arrived here. And I feel like, as for school, the kids are taking a little while to adjust, but our younger one is like, he now, after the Christmas break, has had an amazing start back.
I think we should say on that point that the Portuguese locals here where we are in the Algarve mostly speak Portuguese. A lot of them speak English around the main cities like Lisbon, Albufeira, Corteira. But generally, the language that's spoken here is Portuguese, and they expect the children at school to speak Portuguese. In fact, like, you're trying to teach them for free. So I think that's an important point, that it's just expected here that you're going to speak in Portuguese.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good expectation. Like,
and we are learning Portuguese the best we can. She's fluent in Spanish, so a lot of it has some overlap, and I'm learning from, like, the ground up, basically.
We took a few classes, and we'll take it, no problem.
My Portuguese isn't that fantastic, but falo un pouco de português.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Un pouquinho. So, muito obrigado. Desculpe.
He has perfected ordering coffee.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
for sure.
Easy to order coffee.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say on how we're adjusting?
I think, like, overall, we're adjusting well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much more.
So we'll talk about construction real quick. And it's just something that I should say a few things about to people who might watch this video who have a construction background or who are a little bit into building or building supplies. When I got off the plane, the first thing I noticed was, wow, the palm trees, the weather. It was a beautiful. It was this time last year. The weather was like this. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, and I started looking around and I saw a lot of ruins and buildings in various states of disrepair. And I saw greenhouses made out of eucalyptus truss rods and then, like, saran wrap over it, and that's how they have a greenhouse. So I'm driving around. We're getting off the plane, and I'm like, this place can't have any wind. Because how would you have wind and have this greenhouse sitting there right by the airport? You'll see it if you come to Faro International Airport. And then I'm looking at the clay roofs that are, like, falling apart. You have, like, so many different buildings where the roofs are caved in, and those are for sale here as ruins, you know?
Yeah.
And people want to buy those for reasons that we can get into if we talk about real estate.
There's a lot of abandoned properties here.
So in general, because it's a Mediterranean climate, they're not thinking about walking on the roofs. They're not thinking about, 100 pounds or 300 pounds or 400 pounds or a ton of snow sitting on the roof. So they don't have those.
It's just not a concern here.
Yeah, they don't have those concerns. What the concerns are is, like, let's keep the heat out.
Mm-hmm. And have a way for humidity to escape.
Yeah, so that's where their head is at. So if you make a roof or a truss rod or, like, attics out of eucalyptus trees and clay tiles, you can imagine over time with the moisture, this is what happens to the eucalyptus. It starts to bend, and I've made so many videos about it on my YouTube channel. And at some point, the roofs just collapse. Now, modern roofs in Portugal, I want to say they're a little bit better. We've seen some improvements in construction. But needless to say, coming from Canada, looking at the way they build things here, the older buildings were made of, like, stone and then mortar. And the newer buildings are made of these orange bricks with capillaries or cavities running through them. And then that gives you the option to either run plumbing lines and electrical lines, or you can fill them in with compound or mortar or cement, and then hold them all together. And it's really like building with Lego. And then they can cover them with mortar and then put tiles on them, or cover them with mortar or cement and then paint them white, which is, what a lot of people do here. But that basically what I would consider like a bare minimum construction style is what is popular here, because they're not concerned about freezing to death. They're concerned with just keeping the heat out. There's nobody here in the Algarve that has frozen to death in history. The last time they saw snow was 40 years ago, and they're still talking about a earthquake that happened in Lisbon in the 1700s, just so you know. Farm news,
so
unless you want to say anything else.
Finish on that point is that a lot of places here don't even have a heating system.
Right, we don't.
Because you don't really need it. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, we were waiting basically the full year before we made this video, so we could talk with some authority on the whole how hot is hot and how cold is cold. In general, if I didn't already mention this, there was basically 5 hot days where it was over 100 Fahrenheit, and there was a handful of cold days where we could see our breath at night, but we just lit some candles and had some lanterns going, and we were fine. Moving on from construction, we'll talk about farm news. We're at Love Farm Stay.
Ta-da!
This is the place. You're in the banana circle. I think in general in the last year, how many events have we had here?
A couple with a vegan group, which was like super fun, and that was quite a lot of people too. The first time we catered food to them, and then the second time we did a potluck, and both were equally fun. And
we had the Secret Santa event a little while ago.
Yeah, it was the potluck, Secret Santa. And yeah, we've had a variety of events or also smaller groups here, and it's just been really wonderful. Getting to know people and finding out, like, we don't have a lot of infrastructure right now, so like we're working on that clearly. But for example, for the one event, we decided to close the tiny home and then just offer the dry toilet because it was a free event, and we felt like, you know what, if they're going to use up our all of our water, it's just not what we wanted. So we set up a hand sanitation station and then the dry toilet, which has privacy by being inside of a tent. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like the more infrastructure we receive and build, the easier these events will be to host. But at the same time, it's enough. Like, nobody complained.
Yeah.
Nobody didn't want to come back.
Well,
because
we're careful with how we with how we share information and how we advertise about Love Farm
we're not saying it's a 5-star resort.
We don't say that.
We're saying, no, it's a farm.
It's an off-grid
We're going to sit around the
farm.
fire.
Yeah.
Please bring your folding chairs.
We like to front load the information before people come and expect something that we can't offer.
Yeah, so they love it, and people love to see what we're growing, and they usually take home some seedlings.
Yep. How many things have we planted, would you say?
I don't even
like
know.
over 100 different varieties.
We've planted a lot of different species of plants.
Yeah. Some
with more success than others.
Yep.
And we're super inspired by a friend of ours, a friend that we've made here, called Miguel, running Orchard of Flavors. He inspired us to build this banana circle, and just his methods and I would say his courage to just try and grow things in this climate where most people would be like, oh, that's impossible. He's just like, well, I'm going to try it. And mostly he's successful.
Right.
He just gave us a bunch of green papayas the other day, which now we're looking up beautiful recipes with that. I've never cooked with green papaya. And I made a really yummy salad, for example. And it's just like, I feel like the climate, the people, everything together has really opened up a lot for us. There's a lot more opportunity and things to try. And we had pineapple kiwi. Like, we've had
pineapple
fruit,
guava.
Yeah. We've had fruit that we've never even tried before,
Yeah.
And it's exciting. Like, it's really fun and it's really exciting. And I feel like the farm is kind of a meeting point now. for like-minded people, and I almost feel like people love the simplicity of it. There's no big distractions here. It's really calm. Most people before they leave just stand somewhere and look out at the valley, and it's so beautiful to see. They just like take a minute to take it in or make a video or just really enjoy it.
I commented a couple times on the lady from Switzerland who stood at the edge there of the valley and was just like taking pictures of the valley. And
yeah, but
like,
even
I do the same thing.
When people were arriving at our last event too, they were pulling up and parking, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh!" And they just took a moment to like look around first.
Yeah.
Before even.
Some people love hiking. Desiree and I aren't huge on hiking, but this is a great area for hiking and for dirt biking, for ATVing, for going to a beach, and for surfing. A lot of those things we don't do. Our time is spent like with our kids and farming, and trying to learn new things about growing veggies and fruits. The last thing, if we're gonna move on to the last thing, is things nobody tells you. This might take a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing, and you can find this information online, obviously, but the biggest thing that people find out when they arrive here is the bureaucracy in Portugal rivals the amount of bureaucracy in Germany, except that it's way less organized. So, yeah, I don't know. I always thought of Germany being a super bureaucratic country, and now I have shifted to thinking that like Portugal is way more bureaucratic.
You've said a few times that you feel like more relaxed at the German embassy because you're like, okay, they're gonna get my stuff done. All right.
Well, the German embassy just gives you a list, and then you fill the list and then it's done. Whereas at the school, for example, they give you a list and then you bring in the list.
There you go.
And
we need all this stuff
you check mark everything off the list and you bring it in. And then they're like, oh, you need to do these 3 other things. And then you go and do those 3 other things. And then you bring those in and they're like, oh, but also this other thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, like how many times
you
are
feel
you
like they're
this?
making it up on the spot.
It's so bad that I'm thinking of writing a manual for new parents enrolling their children at the public school.
On that point, NIF numbers are something that you should have. And if you plan on enrolling your kids, a NIF number is like a social insurance number or a social security number. If you're planning on putting your kids in school, then they're also going to need NIF numbers. If I was sitting here talking to Adam and Desiree in 2020, I would be like, hey guys, make sure to get NIF numbers before you leave Canada. That would have been a big help because we didn't know about the kids needing NIF numbers until basically the receptionist put it on a list.
Yeah.
NIF numbers, a lawyer, you're going to need to have a lawyer here.
Well,
on
not
this
if you're
side.
for vacation.
No.
But yeah, anything more permanent, anything with enrolling your children in anything really, and anything you want to do as well, you're going to need this NIF number or social
Vacations are
number.
easy. Yeah, just come and hang out and then leave. We're talking about if you wanted to stay. Things that nobody told us that we wish somebody would have told us.
A lawyer makes things a lot easier, but it's also pricey.
Yeah.
But also speeds things up in general. Right. So, there's perks to everything. We know people who've waited 5 years for just an appointment at the
AIMA.
Yeah, AIMA, the
immigration
office here. So that's another thing with immigration. They're really behind on processing cases and helping people to legally immigrate with all their documents.
So much so that they keep extending deadlines.
Yeah. So, but this is what I'm trying to say is that they're, at the one hand, really behind on the process, but at the same time, they're not just kicking people out. They're saying, okay, we can recognize you've applied and, you're trying to do everything correctly. So just wait a bit for us to get things going. And of course, that can be tricky if you're trying to find work. But if you come here with a plan and a safety net, or one of you can work, for example, eventually they get to it. And we know people who've gotten appointments much faster as well, to get the process going. So, but it's something to keep in mind. And as Canadians, we could have applied for all of this from Canada. And looking back, I think that would have been better, to go through the embassy there. But, now we're here and we're just going to try it this way. And then I don't know, other things people don't tell you is that there is fruit literally everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Like
It's so sad.
went down to the river when it was warmer. We'd go swimming and it was really beautiful. And there's just fruit trees all around.
There is literally nobody will tell you that you'll never go hungry, you'll never starve, and you'll never freeze to death. So I don't think that's like, you know, people that live in Portugal might not want other people to know that. But basically, you could come here and just basically live without having to pay for food. If you're a good grazer. If you're not picky. If you're not picky.
And if you're good at foraging. So, and another thing is the Portuguese are very connected to the land. And they're really good at foraging and cultivating the land. And it's really beautiful. But yeah, the fruit trees everywhere. One explanation I heard is that like trees can survive the dry months a lot better than smaller shrubs and flowers. So that's why there are a lot of trees, because once they're established, they do really well because they can reach water further down.
Taproots.
So, but yeah, you can just go for a hike, and like everyone we see here is eating the loquat when it's ripe, or grabbing a couple oranges. Like there's abandoned orchards all around too. And then our neighbor gives us the most delicious grapefruit that we have ever had in our lives.
So there's fruit everywhere, is Desiree's point.
Yeah. Yeah, what else have we foraged, though, by the river? Pomegranate, almonds, olives, walnuts.
Those were really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's almonds everywhere. There's figs as well up the road. Just everywhere. There's just fruit trees everywhere, and most of them are unattended to.
And quince.
Yeah.
Which we didn't end up doing anything with because it was full of worms. But
well, this is the thing. They're not using pesticides. Everything's organic, so you're gonna see people might complain about. I had orange juice at Airbnb, and it had those fly larvae in it. Yeah, and that's something nobody will tell you, is that if they're not using pesticides, then there's going to be larvae. There might be some wormies in the oranges. Nobody's going to tell you that.
Yeah, so in that case, it's good to see the orange whole. You know, when you're
take a look at it.
Yeah, when you're picking things yourself, you can assess like, oh, this has a hole in it. I'm just not going to pick that one. But yeah, and then I think another thing is that it's just always nice here. Yeah. It's always nice to be here. It's always warm enough.
This is generally the weather, except for when it's really hot.
Yeah, and I'm not cold right now. I just felt like wearing what I'm wearing. But it's winter, and we're not uncomfortable. The last couple nights we actually were saying like, oh, it's like actually really warm now, guys.
This is what we remember when we got off the plane for the first time. We were like, what is going on here?
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like in Canada, Niagara, we have winter until like March, April, May. So it's still winter, hardcore winter in Canada.
Yeah.
There's a couple other things that nobody will tell you here. One is about all the mold everywhere, and the other one is about the disparity, which are two different things that we're pretty passionate about, that we want to talk about. And the mold is just basically like, look, there's mold everywhere here in the Mediterranean climate, and most people would probably bleach it. Another way to get around it is to have ceramic tiles everywhere, then it's easier to clean up, but you will find mold virtually everywhere, even in your Airbnbs or brand new constructions.
Yeah, you need really good air circulation. So this is something we're planning when we upgrade our living space to really look out for. And it's having the right kind of insulation and enough ways for moisture to move and get out of the space, because there is going to be moisture. There's nothing you can do about it.
Even in your Airbnb, when you're staying here just as a guest for 2 weeks, at the end of the first week, you'll be like, is that mold growing on the ceiling? It is.
So airflow is huge, and opening up the space when it's dry outside so that dry air can move through, or using fans. A lot of people use dehumidifiers, which when you're off grid is not practical. Yeah. But yeah, the mold is a huge issue. I think like when we first arrived here,
we noticed people coughing all the time. We were like, oh, that's a mold cough.
And I got really tired, and it triggered some health issues for me.
Yeah.
So it's something to be really aware of.
It's better to be aware of it and figure out ways to mitigate it than just being oblivious to the fact that if you're staying at an Airbnb, nobody's going to fault you for flipping the bed upside down or going in the...
Check that mattress.
We don't want to be the ones to tell you, but look, this is things nobody's going to tell you. Yeah. So we're telling you.
Yeah, and if it smells mildewy, there's probably mildew.
And if it smells like overpowering incense, there's probably mold in there covering up.
They've sprayed Febreze everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, check why.
The other thing is the disparity, which I think Desiree can speak to because she's super passionate about the disparity here.
Well, it's kind of oddly a reflection of where we came from in Niagara as well, because there's a lot of poverty and mental illness in Niagara as well. And here you have a lot of very wealthy people visiting.
Very wealthy people.
And beautiful homes and mansions. And there's like a car that sells a shop that sells supercars down the road. But then you also have a lot of people coming here for the simplicity and like just the simple life, I guess. And there are very poor people here, and there are encampments as well. And even in Lisbon, like you see Prada, like that's where it really struck me was we were walking down a street that just has all these high-end stores, and it's actually on the way to the embassy. And there's like a store. I looked in the window because I love jewelry and I used to work in the business. They had a 12,000 euro emerald necklace and ring set or something like that. It was stunning, and really beautiful craftsmanship and all that. So I'm not saying it wasn't worth it, but you had this store, and then right around the corner from it was this homeless person who was clearly struggling, and begging for money. And it was just like how do you even balance that out? Like it's just such a disparity. And you see it all the time. So like where there's a lot of tourists too, there will be people begging, which is illegal. It's illegal to beg for money in Portugal. But you know, they'll still try and get what they can from the tourists, and I don't fault them at all for that. But again, it's like these people, you know, in flashy cars and just enjoying a beautiful vacation, versus
the Roma.
The Roma are very predominant here, and it makes sense. You know, like the climate is so beautiful, and there's fruit trees everywhere. You know? It's a great place to be in general. So, and it's much easier to survive if you're homeless here than in Canada, for example.
Same as I was saying in other videos, if you were homeless in Canada, you would want to be in British Columbia, near Vancouver.
But what really confuses me is how many abandoned properties there are and how many ruins. And some of these properties aren't ruins, like they're just partially constructed or they've been closed off and not renovated. And there's so much opportunity to help people here, I feel like, and get people into housing that is more just and more ethical.
It's a big country, and there's 10 million people in it. So it's a big country with not a lot of people in it. And so we see, because we've driven around and flown around here, we've seen vast countrysides, a lot of farmland, and then concentrated people groups in large cities. And so we've noticed this disparity in the country, and infrastructure issues outside of the main cities. And we, coming from Canada, like we want to help and we want to fix things, but we're limited to our means, right?
Yeah, and on the other hand, there are really great community services. Like there's food delivery for elderly people, just like you'd have in all of the other places we've lived. And like basically everyone we met when we were looking for property were elderly people, and several of them were saying, oh yeah, I'm just waiting for my lunch to be delivered. And I'm glad that they're being looked after in that way, because people here stay at home. They don't go into retirement homes.
We love that. It's like we're in a blue zone.
Yeah, there are retirement villages and retirement homes here. They're very pricey, kind of similar to other European countries. But most people here are just active, and they're doing all the blue zone activities. They're hiking, they're farming and gardening,
swimming,
they're caring for their own home, they're cooking, they stay part of the community, and so they don't need to be in retirement homes. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like the disparity is real, and I think it's real everywhere. Maybe it's just something that's become more present for me over the years. I would say, well, I don't know. I used to cry about children not having enough food, and when I was a child, and I would want to send them my food. So this isn't really something new for me. But it's a big thing, and I don't think that it's really public. And I wonder what the solutions are, because again, I see this huge opportunity to use all these abandoned spaces.
Right.
But then obviously someone needs to organize it, and someone needs to pay for it.
Right.
And how that is going to work is a big question.
And one of the reasons these properties are abandoned or in various states of disrepair is because of the low property tax every year. It makes it virtually, it's like there's no reason to get rid of the property, because the low property taxes, even the property tax on our farm here is going to be like 300 euros a year. Why would you ever get rid of the farm, even if we didn't live here? So it's a similar situation for other people.
Yeah, a lot of people inherit land and homes from their parents, but they've moved to the city where there's more opportunity. And then they just keep it. They just maintain it in a way of paying the taxes, but never really do anything with it.
Another thing nobody will tell you is that the alcohol here is basically just they're giving it away. You go to the grocery store and a bottle of wine is going to cost you €1. 99 cents, 2 euros, 3 euros.
Now, we can't speak to the quality because we haven't tried it.
Yeah, we don't drink.
But, people are buying it. So.
And people who come here notice this, and they're really excited.
Yeah.
They're just giving the wine away, like a bottle, a regular size bottle for €1.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. We don't drink, so we don't really care. But yeah, it's cheaper than water.
And baked goods are really cheap too.
Baked goods are super cheap.
You can get a baguette for
18 cents.
Yeah, a mini baguette for 18 cents. The regular baguette is 59 cents.
Yeah. So that's something you should know about.
Yeah. Anything else what nobody will tell you about?
Things nobody will tell you. I wanted to talk about the
motorcycle drivers.
The motorcycle drivers, yeah.
So the motorcycles are crazy here.
In France.
In France too, yes.
They'll pass you whether there's a line or not, whether there's bollards or not, they will pass you.
Yeah, whether they're going into the other lane and there's oncoming traffic or not. It's really nerve-wracking.
Yep. If you're going to rent a car, go with Europe Car or some big establishment that's outside of Portugal. That's something nobody will tell you.
Use a larger European rental car company, not a small local one.
Another thing nobody will tell you is gasolina is regular petrol, gasoline, and gasolio is diesel. And you should know the difference, because you don't want to put gasolio in your regular petrol vehicle. Or you can call it 95, but 95 is what they usually call it.
Yeah.
Stick to the main brands, the big corporations like BP. We usually get gas at BP, and it's not because we love BP, it's because...
No, it's because we got gas somewhere else and it almost wrecked the car.
It almost wrecked the car, yeah. You can get bad gas here.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So now we just... yeah. Which, I mean, BP is not generally a corporation that you want to support.
No.
But as far as not ruining our car, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Things nobody tells you about Portugal. Yeah, the driving is one that nobody prepared us for that one. We were like, what?
And there's roundabouts everywhere.
Roundabouts everywhere.
If you hate roundabouts, don't come here.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of roundabouts.
Because so roundabouts don't need electricity, right? And so it's a lot easier to have roundabouts all over. Plus, they make them really pretty. Usually in the center, they have some kind of flowers and decoration.
On the point of drinking, people drink here basically all
yeah.
day.
Yeah, you can get beer and wine everywhere.
When I was at the grocery store earlier getting a couple baguettes for our kids, there was a guy in front of me who looked maybe 19 years old, and he was buying a backpack full of Superbock for the day.
Superbock is a brand of beer.
Yeah, it's like the local beer, Superbock and Sagresh. And
yeah, I usually in the morning see these guys.
It's like 7 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever. He's buying beer, and they'll go outside and crack it and drink it.
Oh yeah, like the guys heading out to work, they usually get baked goods and beer and water.
It's crazy.
That's what I see them getting in the morning. Maybe some fruit. But.
Yeah, another thing nobody tells you real quick before I forget is that there's espresso everywhere. So if you love espresso, this is the place to be. I thought I was in some type of hallucination, custom tailored for me, when I went to the gas station, and every single gas station has like a really nice, you would know better than I do, a barista style espresso machine, and that makes high quality espresso.
Yeah.
And the guys in the hats like this are just sitting there, and they're sipping their tiny espressos everywhere, and it's only €1. And people are just everywhere here drinking espresso all day, and Superbock.
I think one more thing would be that there's a really big spiritual community. The Portuguese themselves are very spiritual and religious, but also very spiritual. And then also the people coming here from other places, whether it's to visit or to stay, it's amazing. It reminds me of the Niagara spiritual community.
People have described that there's a vibe in Portugal, or there's an energy in Portugal right now that's forcing people to change. And if you're not willing to change, it might cause you dis-ease, and you might not be comfortable with Portugal. It's rattling people up.
Like it's challenging you demanding that you don't stay stuck, kind of thing.
Which is fine for me because I'm all about change.
Yeah, it's all right for us. We're water signs.
So.
But yeah, that is another thing of like how beautiful the community is here. Both of the locals and the people that have made their home here.
Yeah. All in all, we love Portugal. If you would have told us, 10 years ago that we would be in Portugal and we would be completely happy a year later, we'd be like, that's crazy. I never even considered going to Portugal in my life. It wasn't on my radar of things or on my list of places to go. Basically, our friend Brian had a spiritual reading for us, and kind of threw out the idea that we're going to be going to Portugal, and we just kind of laughed it off. Well, we'll put that on the back burner, Brian.
Yeah, I had been to Portugal once, and I love Spain. And I've been to France a lot, and Germany, and Portugal just wasn't really at the top of our list.
Yeah.
So, we are.
Here we are, and we love it, and I would recommend that you come and vacation here when you come and check it out. I would say if you like the city, you like the big city, then Lisbon or Albufeira or Porto would be similar to Toronto, Montreal, or New York City, right? Those are your big cities. Anything around the coast, like Corteira, around the southern coast, Corteira, Albufeira, Villa Moura, is more like for the beachgoers, and the west coast is where all the wind is. So the west coast, Sagresh and that area, will be for the surfers. Although there are pockets of surfing communities along the south, they like to go back and forth wherever the stronger waves are and higher waves are. I don't know much about surfing, but there is a surfing community here, and we see a lot of RVs with surfboards on top. So this is somewhere where you can RV around. You can start your European tour or backpack adventure here. You can come hang out with us and park an RV, and we're all for it. We would love to have you here on the farm stay to talk more about all this stuff in person. So thank you for watching our year of Portugal in review. I've been Adam Josh, and this is my super bestie / fiance, Desiree Bonzergothen.
I love you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Yay!